Welcome to Homestead Reptile, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about a podcast I recently watched. It's Reptiles and Research, and they're basically talking about reptile breeding. They were talking about establishing proper lines, breeding a proven type, body composition, and breeding quality. So throughout this podcast, they were just saying that the reptile community doesn't practice any of this on a regular basis. No, it's very rare to have breeders do it. It's very rare to have any reptiles bred in this way. So I'm going to say crested geckos, our crested gecko breeders are doing a lot of this stuff. So body composition, super important to a crested gecko breeder. So someone who's seriously into breeding, is tracking their lineage, is doing everything right, and wants the gecko to look a certain way. We think about the body of the animal, not just the color, but the body as well. And this is kind of how I think about it. So when you're talking about body composition, you'll have two different breeders, and they'll have two different thoughts on what their projects they want to go through. So I don't like super saggy crests on the crested gecko's head. It's okay if there's a little bit, but I really don't like it. I don't like a droopy crest, but there are some breeders that like a droopy crest. And it depends. That one breeder the droopy crest is my thing. I was like, I don't like the droopy crests. Some breeders might want more spikiness to the crest, or a fuller eyelash. There's a lot of different things that the crested gecko breeder might have a preference for over something else. So with crested geckos, we focus on color pattern and then the structure of the animals. Like, does the animal needs to have a good body structure, so the head needs to look nice. We want full eyelashes. We want the crest to be fully meet to the eye. For like an amazing, perfect gecko, you want a wide dorsal, you want a flat neck, you want a nice, robust body, strong legs. The animal just needs to come together as a seamless whole, that it's a nice, thick built gecko. So wild crested geckos look so different from the crested geckos we have in captivity. I would almost say our captive crested geckos are pretty much at or in the process of being domesticated. So a wild crested gecko is a completely different creature from our more domesticated variety. So not just color. We're going to ignore the color. We're going to look at their bodies. A wild crested gecko has a very narrow head, long nose, almost no crest, almost no eyelashes, and it's just a very slim little lizard. Our more domesticated crested geckos, even the ones with the worst structure, have better structure than the wild type crested geckos, have full eyelashes, are bigger, are much larger. And the head size and the nose size is like, there are some crested geckos that have really, really short noses compared to the wild types. And their heads are massive. The dorsal stripes are huge. You will not find a crested gecko that physically looks like it. And here's some examples of wild types, and here's some examples of our domestic varieties. They don't look like the same animal anymore. They look vastly different. They look like they're still related, but compare them to like a wolf versus a dog. You have dogs that look more wolf-like. Then you have dogs that don't even look like wolves anymore, that if an alien came down and said, that pug and that wolf are related, how does that happen? It's one of those things. We're in the process of making them so physically different that it's astounding. I don't think it's a good or bad thing. I think it's just, this is how I think about it. So crested geckos, the ones we have in captivity, they have nothing to do with the wild ones anymore. They're never going to go back in the wild. There's no breeding programs to keep the crested geckos wild. The ones that we have, they're pets. They're domestic pets. So I look at them the same way as I would look at betta fish. People are breeding for different betta fish varieties. They're never going to be released back into their native habitat. And betta splendid isn't like a mix of a ton of different betta fish. Or goldfish. We're not taking goldfish and trying to rewild them and make them wild goldfish again. We have so many different varieties and extreme body types out of just a fish. And crested geckos, I think, are like probably the best example of like extreme body variation in one species. I almost compare them in a way to kind of dogs. It's like, it's extreme what they can look like. You can get crested geckos that will have bubbly scales. They're like really round. They call them boba scales. and a scale thickening on the side. You can have soft scales, just like the physical structure of the scales, the head structure, the body structure. There's like an extreme variation in structure. It's amazing. But most breeders think about body composition. It's a major thing. So color, body composition. And a lot of breeders, and I do kind of focus a little bit more on color in some geckos and then body composition. Just because color is more difficult to breed in and body composition is easier to make, at least with crested geckos. It takes like 1 to 2 generations to make a gecko with really great structure, and it takes like maybe 5 or plus generations to make a gecko a certain color or saturation in color. It's just color is a little bit more difficult, pattern and all that stuff is a little bit more difficult than the structure of the body. But the best gecko has the best color and the body structure. And the structure is really going to be subjective to each breeder. And we have started Tiki's Gecko, the gold standard gecko club. They had their first gecko showing at a reptile expo. One gecko won the best in show. And there's a whole on their website. I'll leave the link, the gold standard gecko club. They're doing some amazing stuff. And I also want to breed to some of these standards. I agree with most of the stuff in there. I like it, and I think it's the way to go. And this is even in dog shows. It's like there might be a judge is like looking at two the same breed, say this type of phenotype, I prefer it a little bit more than that one. And it's going to come down to what you want in breeding your crested gecko. So crested geckos have a lot of these good characteristics to do a lot of amazing stuff, and the crested gecko breeding hobby is doing that stuff. Now, there are bad breeders and there are good breeders, but that's with anything. There are bad dog breeders, there are bad cat breeders, there are bad rabbit breeders, bad fish breeders. There's so much variation with everything. And I think crested geckos are probably one of the only reptiles that were working to a standard. There's like so much information about the structure of a gecko. I've put out so much information on what to look for, good structure, bad structure, things that are total disqualifications that you should never breed. Is like a dip in the back. That's a non-breedable gecko. Don't touch that thing. It should just be a pet quality animal. Faults that you should try to breed away from to correct. So a divot in the neck. So it's more of a cosmetic issue, but it will cause the spikes in the head to pull up. I have one gecko that has a major dip, and I've bred him to a gecko that has no dip and has much better structure, and the offspring don't have the dip. Their crests are normal, and they look better than the father. And like I said, that was 1 generation improvement that quickly. The structure is the easiest thing to improve. Color is a little bit more difficult. So that podcast I watched was very interesting. And like I said, they were kind of bashing on the crested geckos a little bit. You know, they are bred a lot. They are one of a really popular species, but they're a very popular species for a reason. But also, give the crested gecko breeders their dues. It's like we're working so much on perfecting them. There are like little breed clubs for the different morphs that are popular. There's like the cappuccino groups, there's the lily white groups, there's white spot groups, the phantom groups, black phantom groups. There's like so many breeders that are really passionate and are breeding to a standard. And we're making standards and we're making disqualifications, and we talk to each other all the time. And it's like, okay, it's like, what do you guys think about this pairing? And we'll say, it's like, this one, I would go with that male because that would complement that color pattern a little bit better, but that male has better structure and that female has a little bit poorer structure, so you'll get better structured babies. But if this was interesting to you, like and subscribe and leave a comment.